The night the storm swallowed the mountain, even the bravest men would have turned back. Snow fell in thick, blinding sheets, erasing the world 1 inch at a time. The wind howled like a wounded animal through the pine trees, shaking the small wooden cabin perched alone at the edge of the forest. Inside, a retired Navy SEAL sat quietly by the fire, unaware that in just a few minutes, his loyal German shepherd would change not just one life, but 2. If you believe in kindness, second chances, and the quiet heroism of animals and the people who love them, take a moment right now to like this video, share it with someone who needs a little hope, and subscribe to the channel. Stories like this remind us that even in the coldest storms, warmth can still be found. His name was Ethan Cole. Years earlier, he had served in some of the harshest places on Earth, where survival depended on discipline, instinct, and trust. After leaving the Navy, he chose a quieter life in the mountains of Montana, far from the noise of cities and the ghosts that sometimes followed him home. The cabin was modest, wooden walls, a stone fireplace, a wide porch that looked out over endless forest. It was the kind of place where silence wasn't lonely, it was healing. His only constant companion was Rex, a powerful German shepherd with intelligent amber eyes and a calm, steady presence. Rex had served alongside Ethan during his final years in the military. Together, they had navigated danger, darkness, and uncertainty. When Ethan retired, he made sure Rex came with him. They were more than partners. They were family. That night, the storm arrived without warning. The temperature dropped sharply, and heavy snow began to bury the trail leading to the cabin. Ethan secured the shutters and checked the generator, knowing they might lose power. Rex paced near the door, his ears alert, sensing something Ethan couldn't yet see. The hours passed slowly. The fire crackled. The wind screamed. Then suddenly, Rex froze. His body stiffened, and a low whine escaped his throat. He moved toward the front door, scratching at it urgently. Ethan stood up, immediately alert. Years of training had sharpened his instincts. When Rex reacted like that, it meant something wasn't right. He grabbed his coat and flashlight, opened the door carefully, and was met with a blast of icy wind that stole his breath. Snow swirled in the beam of his light, turning the world into a white blur. Rex didn't hesitate. He bounded off the porch and into the storm, nose low to the ground, moving with determined focus. Ethan followed, fighting against the wind, trusting his partner completely. The snow was already knee-deep, and the temperature was dropping fast. Whatever Rex had sensed couldn't survive long in this cold. About 20 yards from the cabin, near the edge of the tree line, Rex suddenly stopped. He lowered his head and began pawing gently at a small mound in the snow. Ethan rushed closer, heart pounding. At first, he saw nothing but white. Then he noticed something dark, something small, barely visible beneath the frost. Rex carefully gripped the tiny shape in his mouth, lifting it with extraordinary gentleness. As he turned toward Ethan, the flashlight beam revealed the truth. It was a puppy. The little creature was stiff with cold, its fur covered in ice crystals. Its tiny body hung limp in Rex's mouth. For a terrifying second, Ethan thought they were too late. He felt a familiar surge of urgency, the same adrenaline that once carried him through life-or-death missions overseas. Not tonight, he muttered under his breath. He scooped the puppy from Rex and cradled it inside his coat, shielding it from the wind. The body was barely warm. The heartbeat, if it was there at all, was faint. Ethan moved quickly, stumbling through the snow back to the cabin, Rex close behind. Inside, Ethan laid the puppy near the fireplace but not too close, knowing sudden heat could shock its fragile system. He wrapped it in dry blankets and began gently rubbing its tiny chest, trying to stimulate circulation. He had seen hypothermia before, in soldiers, in civilians. He knew how quickly it could claim a life. Minutes felt like hours. Rex lay beside the puppy, his large body radiating warmth, his eyes never leaving the tiny form. Ethan continued the slow, careful process of warming and checking for signs of life. Then, just when the silence became unbearable, the smallest movement stirred beneath the blankets. A weak tremble. Ethan leaned closer. The puppy's chest rose slightly, then fell. A fragile breath. Relief flooded through him so powerfully that he had to steady himself against the floor. They weren't too late. For the rest of the night, Ethan stayed awake, feeding the puppy small drops of warm milk with a syringe and monitoring its breathing. The storm raged outside, but inside the cabin, something else was happening. Life was returning. Hope was flickering back into existence. By morning, the worst of the storm had passed. Sunlight reflected off the snow, turning the world into a field of diamonds. The puppy, though still weak, lifted its head slightly and let out a faint whimper. Ethan studied the tiny animal more closely. It was a mixed breed, mostly black with small tan markings above its eyes. No collar. No tag. No sign of where it had come from. Someone must have abandoned it in the storm. The thought angered him more than he expected. He had seen cruelty in many forms during his service, but something about leaving a defenseless animal to freeze felt especially heartless. Over the next few days, the cabin transformed into a recovery center. Ethan postponed his usual routines and focused entirely on the puppy's care. Rex remained constantly nearby, almost protective, as if he understood the responsibility he had taken on that night. The puppy grew stronger each day. It began to wobble around the living room on unsteady legs. It barked softly at Rex, who responded with patient tolerance. Ethan found himself smiling more often than he had in years. He named the puppy Scout. At first, Ethan told himself it was temporary. He would check with nearby towns, post notices, and try to find the owner. But as days turned into weeks, no one came forward. No one asked about a missing puppy. It was as if Scout had appeared from the storm itself, meant only for them. Yet the true change wasn't just in Scout. It was in Ethan. Before that night, his days had been predictable. Quiet. Sometimes too quiet. Memories had a way of creeping in when there was nothing else to focus on. But now, mornings were filled with small paws skidding across wooden floors. Afternoons meant short training sessions in the snow. Evenings ended with Scout curled up between Ethan and Rex by the fire. Caring for the fragile life had awakened something in him that had been dormant since leaving the military. Purpose. Responsibility beyond survival. A future instead of just a past. One afternoon, while watching Scout clumsily chase snowflakes, Ethan felt a realization settle deeply in his chest. The puppy hadn't just been saved from the storm. He had been rescued too, from isolation, from the heavy silence he had chosen as protection. Months passed. Scout grew quickly, learning from Rex's steady example. The two dogs became inseparable, racing through the forest trails and returning home covered in snow and joy. Then one day, while hiking near the edge of his property, Ethan noticed something that made his heart pause. Fresh tire tracks in the snow near the tree line, the same area where Rex had found Scout. He followed them cautiously. The tracks led to a shallow ditch, where faint sounds drifted through the air. Whimpering. His pulse quickened. Hidden behind a cluster of fallen branches were two more puppies, shivering and hungry. Abandoned, just like Scout had been. Anger burned hot in Ethan's chest, but it was quickly replaced by resolve. He wrapped the puppies in his jacket and carried them home, Rex and Scout trotting protectively at his side. That night, as three small puppies slept safely by the fire, Ethan made a decision that would redefine his life. He would no longer live quietly at the edge of the forest, pretending the world's problems didn't reach him. If someone was dumping animals in these mountains, he would be the one to stop it. And more than that, he would create a place where no abandoned dog would ever face a storm alone again. Within months, the small cabin property began to change. Ethan built heated kennels. He contacted local shelters and veterinarians. Word spread through nearby towns about the former Navy SEAL and his loyal German Shepherd who rescued abandoned dogs from the wilderness. People started volunteering. Donations arrived. The property slowly transformed into a safe haven for animals who had been discarded and forgotten. And at the center of it all were Rex and Scout, the first rescue and the reminder of why it all began. Years later, Ethan would often stand on his porch during winter storms, watching dozens of dogs play safely in fenced yards, their warm shelters glowing softly in the snow. Rex, now older and grayer, would sit beside him, and Scout, strong and confident, would patrol the perimeter like a guardian. The storm that once threatened to take a life had instead sparked a mission. Before this story comes to a close, I want to ask you something from the heart. If this journey of loyalty, courage, and second chances has touched you even a little, please take a moment to like this video, share it with someone who believes in compassion, and subscribe for more stories that remind us of the good still alive in the world. And right now, I have one special request. Comment the word hope below if you believe that even one small act of kindness can change everything. Because on that frozen night, when a German Shepherd refused to ignore a faint cry beneath the snow, he proved something powerful. Heroes don't always wear uniforms. Sometimes they have 4 paws, a loyal heart, and the courage to act when no one else will. The storm passed. The snow melted. But the warmth that began that night never faded. And in a quiet mountain cabin once filled only with silence, laughter and barking echoed through the trees, proof that love, once given a chance, multiplies beyond anything we could ever imagine.